Hey Vicky, it's Kathy. I'm starting to think we should meet on Zoom because this is such a complicated topic. I wasn't sure what Mary Rowe book that you had, but I have the second one that was published by Schoolhouse Press, and I bought mine through Pearl Soho, the website, and then this was my first one, and I'm wondering if this is the one that you have. And in case this original book is the one you have, then I thought I would just flip through this one so you could see in case, because it sounded like you were looking for crown designs, and it sounded like you felt like you had plenty of charted designs for this body area of the hat, but you wanted some suggestions for where you can find some charted designs to kind of slot into a template. And I have to say that I've never found a book like that. I think what you have to do is just study a lot of the tam patterns that are out there and kind of decide which one is most interesting to you and kind of look at the structure. Like, for example, I don't know how many points there are, but if you were fascinated by a star with this many points, you could kind of use this as your starting point and then fill in the between sections with whatever design you wanted to put in there. So I think that's the most valuable thing that this book has to offer, is she's really showing you the diversity in how you can create these kaleidoscope-like visual effects on the circular, like on this dome part of the hat. And that's what I would do for my starting point, is just try to look at a common, kind of look at a hat tam as your starting point for the structure and see how you want to build it out with the designs inside. So that's just the first thing I was saying. I know that doesn't sound super helpful, but I think the next thing that I'm going to say is going to be more helpful to you. So there's 3 ways to chart out a tam pattern, and I've seen all 3 ways from different hats that I've worked on in the past. And so in this method, you see the decreased stitches in one column here, and then the full wedge for each wedge in the wheel is all complete here. And so that would be one way that you could do it. And so I'm just going to kind of redraw it, and I'm going to have to zoom in a bit. So the beauty of this method is that you can use knitting software where you chart out your charted designs, or you can use colored pencils with graph paper. I personally like graph paper, so I have a little paper pad of that in my house. And then you just, let's just assume this is knitting graph paper. You would just literally use a pen and pencil and start filling in the design inside this triangle. So the other way to do it is how Wilma does it, and that is where this wedge is split in half and inverted, and so you end up with something like this, and then you get your center double decreases in the bar here. So that's method number 2. And then method number 3, this is a method that Marie Wallen uses, where you get one wedge here, and then you get a half a wedge. Hopefully that looks like a half a wedge, and then that's a half a wedge, and then your center double decreases go here and here. So I've only ever knit one hat, and I rarely see this style of charting, but the Chamomile Tam by Marie Wallen uses this method, so in case you're curious about it, you can see it. The method of charting for doing the crown, the easiest method when you're in the design phase is this method, because you can see what the complete, what one entire complete wedge looks like. So if I refer to this book here, this is one spoke in the wheel, if you want to call it a spoke in the wheel. So this section here is this complete section here, and then this V shape is this V shape here. So what's really confusing is that when you look at it here, it makes sense from this area downwards, but it looks upside down when you look at it from this area upwards, so it can get confusing. But this would be one complete wedge, and these are your decreases. And also I know it's really confusing because they literally are going to line up here, but because you're decreasing, these stitches are just non-stitches. And of course you probably know that, you've probably knitted a lot of hats yourself. So anyways, the easiest way to design the chart is to work with one single wedge, and this is what you see here. That section correlates to that section. This V correlates to that V. And if you want to get a sense for what your whole completed chart is going to look like, there's something called quilting mirrors, and it kind of looks like two mirrors that have a join, and you can hold that up to your wheel, one of the wedges, and then it will repeat in the mirror, so it kind of has a kaleidoscope effect. So you can see how this is going to appear when there's more sections. Or the other thing you could do is, once you've done this, you could photocopy it, and let's say you have a 6 section hat, just copy it 6 times, cut it out with paper, tape it, and you'll have your complete circle. There's so many ways that you can kind of go about doing this. The sky is really the limit. I have been told that in the Shetland Islands, they do swatch just the crown, and if it doesn't work out, they still use it by putting it in an embroidery hoop and hanging it on the wall, and study it from it, learn from it, think about it. It could be a reference source for future projects. It may not work out for the project they're working on, but it may be perfect for a future project, or it may be something that they just don't want to waste because of all the time and effort and the wool that went put into doing it. So I have one final thought for you in terms of looking for actual charted designs. Do you know the author Anne Bardsgaard? I think that's how you spell it. I just did a video on her book on Norwegian charted designs for socks, and there's some cardigans in that book too. Well, her first book that was on mittens has a ton of charted designs. It's a super thick book, and there's a lot of designs for mittens where the motif is just the right size to fit on the this side of your hand. And so I'm thinking maybe there's some motifs in that book that may just fit inside this wedge area here. The other thing you could think about is, in your charted library, whatever motifs you have collected over the years, you can think about deciding which ones you like, and if you can't find one that fits in the number of stitches you have to work with, to kind of cover this central area here, you can just use it as a starting point and reduce it or rework it. And one way that I went about doing that when I was working with the Marie Wallen sweater that I was trying to convert into a hat is I just kept cutting up the charted design and taping and retaping, and just kind of readjusting all the charted designs she did until I ended up with an entirely new design. And I literally just did that with paper, scissors, and tape. I didn't do it by kind of carefully and painstakingly putting in a dot in every square to develop my design. So I think there's a lot you can do with looking at the charted designs that you own or you could get from other authors, and think of this space as the largest area that you have to work with, and then the little peries that you want to put in here and here. Though this book has tons of those as well that you could borrow from. It's not going to be perfect because I've never seen one book that just has charted designs for just the crown that you can kind of use as a catalog to kind of pick and choose from. It really is a matter of doing it yourself, and just taking pencil to paper and using knitting graph paper and playing around with this template format, and those quilting mirrors might help you. And the one other thing I wanted to say is I think it's easier to start out simple and then move to something more complex over time, especially if you're in a hurry and you want to knit something up fast. Just start out with something very simple and then move on to something more complex in your next project. There was a gal in the Shetland Islands that produces a range of wool, and I can't recall the name of it, but I'll try to mention it when I share my link to this video for you. She put out a design contest and was basically inviting everyone to design a hat pattern if they were willing to use her yarn, and this required you to purchase her yarn as well. And that competition led to a book publication that you can get on Ravelry, and there was a gal in there that did a fantastic job. She's from Wisconsin, and her hat pattern was called Tetagooch, and I think she used a fairly simple design, and as a first-time designer designing the crown of her hat, I think she did a really good job. So it might be something you want to look at for reference to just give you some ideas for starting out simple and then thinking of maybe doing something more complex over time. That's how personally I would go about doing it. So I will put a link to that hat pattern for you in my reply to your last email. So anyways, I really hope this helps. I had wanted to do this a whole bunch when I was knitting before the pandemic began. It was always a goal of mine, and then you know, just a lot of emotional ups and downs from the pandemic. I haven't really found the mojo to want to do this lately, so I'm glad that you asked, and I'm so excited that you're pursuing this, because I hope more people do this. It's very, very hard to find hat patterns out there that are really worth knitting. So good luck, and I can hardly wait to see what you come up with. I hope you get in touch with me again and let me know what you did, and if not, no problems, because I know how it goes. I don't always pursue everything that I hope to do as well, but I hope I can help you along on your journey, and it was so nice to meet you. I hope you're well in Northern California. I'm here in hot, sunny Southern California, and anyways, I envy you. You probably have a lot more yarn shops to choose from than we do down here. There aren't any yarn shops. Maybe one. We can go to the Pearl Soho warehouse here. So I guess that's it. I hope this helps, and take good care, and I will look forward to seeing the hat that you knit. Okay, bye.